Hello, this is a video responding to some of the things that Marconi on worldwidedx forums has mentioned about some of the things on the Astroplane. Some things referring to what I've done. Some of the things are me bringing things up to him for him to consider. Things like that. The first thing is a reference that he made to the patent saying that I put my feed point in the wrong place. Honestly, I think he's pushing this a little too far. I think you're pushing it a little too far. But let's take a look at what the patent actually says and then look at a diagram and see what the big difference is between where your feed point is and where my feed point is. So right here in the highlighted part, that's the important section. A first transmission feed lead 38 of cable 37. Patent talk, that's translation coax. Actually one of the outer shield of the coax, its braided cover, is electrically connected to clamping element 25, and the inner lead, that would be the center conductor, 40, is electrically connected to split brass ring 36, hence the third conductor 18. So basically, where one side is connecting is clamping element 25 and whatever that attaches to, so we'll look at a diagram and figure that out. And the other element, the other wire connects to third conductor 18. So conductor 18. So let's go into a diagram of it. Right here we have conductor 18 coming up. That's this long side. That's where one of the sides of the feed point is connecting. A wire that connects directly to that. The other wire, clamp number 25. Well, there's actually more than one, but clamp number 25 is directly attached to the bracket that goes across, or this bracket across here. So one side of the feed point attaches here on this wire, up here on this wire, on this attached to this wire. The other feed point is here, but attached to the bracket. Now you're putting your feed point, let me zoom in a bit. You're putting your feed point specifically right here on the model. I'm putting my feed point specifically right here on the model. The feed point, one wire is connecting to one side, one wire is connecting to the other side. The actual feed point is actually right in between where we're putting it, right in this corner. So with all due respect, you putting a feed point here and me putting a feed point here, we're both equally right and we're both equally wrong. I will also say, based on prior experience, that this will make, whether it's here or here, will make very little difference. I'm not going to say no difference, but it will make very little difference. That I think might be part of the part of the issue of where we're seeing differences, because between our models there is a difference, but it's not going to be large. Another thing to test what I'm saying, or to build a model yourself, make a model of a half wavelength dipole with exactly 20 segments. Or no, with exactly 50 segments. I'm sorry. A half wavelength dipole with exactly 50 segments. You put, in one case you put the feed point on segment 25, and on the other case in another case you put the segment on number 26, segment number 26. So you have two segments that are right next to each other. Essentially what we have here, we have a corner with a segment going this way and a segment going down. So you have two sides, two different feed points that are one segment apart, and see how much of a difference it makes. Seriously, try it. On to the next. All right, on to the next part. Marconi, you're talking about your model with the blue wire removed. This is the diagram portion that you're referring to in the patent. You'll notice that this point here, there is no wire in between. This is where I actually happen to put my feed point. The patent does talk about this wire being there and not being there. That's fine. This is not the blue wire that I'm talking about. When I'm talking about the blue wire, I'm talking specifically this wire here. This is the wire that shows almost no current. This is the wire I've been adding in and removing. Removing this wire doesn't do you any good as far as the blue wire addition and removal that I'm talking about, adding in or removing it. Removing this, the patent is talking about something completely different than I am. There is no parallel. This wire and this wire are doing two very different things in the models. So when you remove this wire and say that it's the same as removing this wire, I'm sorry, I beg to differ. Now onto yours, when you said you remove this wire, I want you to take a good look. You'll see this comes up and ends, and this comes up and goes over and goes up and down. There's nothing. I can go up and down. There's nothing here at all. Taking a look at you when you've removed it, your model when you removed it, let's zoom in a bit. We have this wire removed, but this wire here is still here. You still have a connection to get from here to somewhere else. In the patent, there is no connection here. In your model, there is. Removing this wire with this going around will do absolutely nothing to the output in your results. Well, I can't say nothing. It will do very little. Instead of just coming across here, what the current will do is go up, over, down, and back. You still have a connection where before there was none. So you need to fix this in your model. I honestly don't even know why you do the two wire going across method anyway. I'm guessing that's mostly because you're trying to simulate the bracket. I think this is also where some of our models are what's causing a difference. If we go into the patent, at no place does it show, you can zoom out, I guess. At no place does it show, I don't have the other one loaded. Even on the other page, at no place does it show there's two wires going across there. And I think it's electrically doing something different than we want it to do. So as for that, there might be something for you to play with. Here I'm comparing a half wavelength loop to the loop that's in the Astroplane antenna, which is also very close to a half wavelength. Looking at seeing what's the same and seeing what is different. Is here we have a half wavelength loop. This has been tuned to resonance. At resonance, R is around 5800. Actually, it's a little more than 5800. So it's a very high impedance antenna. And that's something that we would expect to see with a half wavelength loop. This is specifically the loop area of the Astroplane antenna. The Astroplane data is over here. I'm not really too worried about that. This is a comparison between the two loops. Here we have the feed point, which as we both know is the little red circle that is down here at in this case, the bottom. Right next to the feed point, we have low current. Blue equals low current. Low current is high voltage. As we move our way around, the farthest point on the loop away from the feed point electrically is up here at the top. And we have high current. That's red into the pinkish red color. So on a half wavelength loop, it doesn't matter if it's square or triangle, the point that is the furthest away, or circle actually, the point that is the furthest away from the feed point is high current. It's this way with every loop. It just so happens that the half wavelength loop, the part next to the feed point is low current, high voltage. This changes. This does not. It's always high current at the furthest point away from the feed point in a half wavelength loop. At least one that's only a half wavelength loop. Now let's move over to the Astroplane antenna. Here we have again a loop that's about a half wavelength. In this case we have this part which I like to call the upper vertical element, the vertical element above the loop. And we have this part which is the mast. Now we're not going to worry about those too much. Of course they do need to be factored in on a thorough discussion. But this is again just talking about the current on the loops. Here the feed point is, and we have again, or not again, but in this case, right where the feed point is in most of this area of the loop, we have high current. Again, red into the pinkish, that's high current. The ring area down below, this is the area as far away from the feed point of the loop that we can get on that loop. We have that low current. This is exactly the opposite of what a half wavelength loop will do. I'm not saying that the Astroplane can't be a loop antenna because of this, but it is something to think about. Current distribution on the loop of the Astroplane antenna is exactly the opposite that the current distribution is on a half wavelength loop antenna. I'm curious as to your thoughts on that, Eddie and Bob, if you happen to watch this, Bob85 and Marconi.